I was talking to my friend the other day, and he was wondering why there isn't more ponies on my channel. And so I got to thinking, ponies make everything better, regardless of execution or what the original intent is. So I'm just going to add some ponies to my Let's Play here, and we're off. But, actually, now that I think about it, it does kind of make more sense for this game because it's based around knights in a medieval setting, and it's kind of odd that they don't have horses. I mean, I understand that, every RPG, you start out walking, but at some point you usually pick up either, a chocobo, which is the Final Fantasy version, of a horse, or some kind of land-based vehicle, but, this one you don't. And so it's kind of odd that one of the knight tropes that they, one of the knights in shining armor tropes that they don't use in this game is that one. Well, anyway, let's get back to our game. Alright, welcome back to Let's Play Legend of Dragoon. So far we've had our hometown destroyed, our girlfriend kidnapped, and we've had to fight a dragon and a lot of knights. So, that's just a average day for Dart. Now that I think about it, he's kind of like the Jack Bauer of this universe. He just has bad day after bad day, but keeps kicking ass. Do. Okay, well, here is our first shop. Pretty standard in this genre of guys who sell you things at improbable places. Which, at least some of these they explain of why there's a shop in the middle of a dungeon but really it's pretty much inexplicable. I mean, okay, this one is not as bad because, look at this. This is a very nice, simple forest. Whereas, later ones will be, in glaciers or in dead cities or, all kinds of crazy places. But, anyway. One of the things that I like about this game is that it does start off in a nice gentle forest. I mean, we've had the decimation of the town, but then the intro level, because this is when you're first starting to get a feel for the gameplay and the mechanics, and I genuinely enjoy that they didn't just throw you immediately into the dungeon of the prison, the literal dungeon. They gave you a chance to explore and, take your time, get a feel for how this game works, because it does work, mechanically differently than other RPGs. Instead of just pure random encounters, it gives you a little countdown, that's what the little triangle above your head is. It goes from blue to yellow to red, and then once it's in red, then an encounter is about to happen. And so, that is a, very nice touch. That they're, playing with things, and they're not just doing everything because, they're working in the genre and they have to. They're actually, doing things a little differently, trying things out. And it's a shame that this one didn't quite, get to the franchise state, because I would surely like a Legend of Dragoon too. And the other thing I really like, and I think really, shows, writing and good intentions, is that they do start off with this forest. We do see the devastation, and then you see that, life, is continuing. There is, as bad as, things are in the personal space of, his hometown, or what we're going to see in this prison, life still continues, which is, a pretty surprising and pretty adult thing to, put in a game, but also the fact that it provides such a strong contrast with what came before it and what's going to come next. Because a burned out town, burned out town with barely clinging to life, that is pretty bleak and hardcore. And then what we're going to see in this prison that, makes is one of the worst prisons in video games, having that forest there in the middle, really, in my mind, highlights, the difference between, the light and the dark. I know a lot of, modern media thinks that the best way to show darkness is just show more darkness, which, things like, the Christopher Nolan Batman, or especially the new RoboCop, which I really don't like, because what they're missing from, more than anything, from the original isn't that they couldn't do as cool action scenes as the original, or, I understand that the corporate message is a little different because we view corporations differently and have different problems with them, today as opposed to the mid-'80s. But the biggest change that I just find completely inexplicable, and I can't really fault the director on this is just how media is going, which was to cut out all the humor, all the levity, all the kind of, lighter things that, really, in my mind, punctuated the original RoboCop, series. Because how are you going to know what the truest, darkest drama is without knowing what the light movement is to contrast it? I mean, in a room, you can either have, the darkest shadow, and you can either try to get there by completely draining all light out of it, or the other way, and the way I prefer to do it, is by, literally shining a light, and then you can see how dark that shadow is, compared, and give it something to compare it to. And so, and I personally am just, not liking that everyone wants to go the complete darkness route instead of having things, be more balanced, more, contrastable. Because what is life without lighter moments, without levity, without somebody making a joke? I've never been in a workplace where everybody is completely serious all the time. With my friends, even in the worst of times, one of us would make a joke to try to, help lighten the mood. And so I don't know where this, I just disagree with how the new cultural view of, we have to have, everything be dark all the time, forever. So, some of the other things that, are going on with this prison is, you do have, all your knights, and I like that they're not shying away and, having it be non-humans guarding this place. They don't have, magic orcs or anything, because this is a human drama. It is built upon humans, and it's about humans. And so, yeah, Dart is having to kill people, and instead of just shying away from it or trying to come up with some kind of third option to have, super morality, they just have him attacking. And honestly, in a realistic way, I shouldn't say realistic, in a more realistic way than most games or media, it just he doesn't, wallow in self-pity over it. He doesn't stop and, question it. It's not really highlighted as to that this is going on badly. Instead, it just is allowed to play for what it is. And in that way, I do, like it, because there isn't always a magical way out of everything, or the perpetrators of evil are not always, cartoonishly non-human bad things. Oftentimes they're just people who made different choices, and you just have to live with that. that what separates the good and the evil is not always a markable difference. It's quite often just a difference of opinion. And I gotta say, thematically, this plays really great into what this whole first chapter is, which is a civil war that has broken out between two halves of a broken kingdom. That the one in the south, has been, has split it away, and we'll get more information about this later, about, two brothers, both, in the style of, kingship, and, how these, things would be divided up. Only one brother, would inherit the throne. So, these are all based off, real things that have happened in history. I mean, one of the things that I, like about the design layout of this prison is that, it isn't just the jail cells, which, in real life, the guards have to sleep somewhere too. And, I like that is a spot that you can actually physically go to, in this dungeon layout, because usually that kind of detail is just, either forgotten or omitted or, just glossed over. In this game, think things through and do, have a logical place and to put that, which would be on the ground floor or relatively close to it, so that, if there is a problem, the prisoners would have to go by the guards, rooms in order to get out. So that would be, a security measure right there. Or if there's, a fire or anything like that, the guards can, more easily evacuate, which, is also telling because, that's who they're, more worried about. They're not worried about, saving the prisoners that have been locked up for whatever reason. And they're worried about their own people, which is a very human interaction, especially if you don't view the others as equal or as humans as much as you are, which is a very human thing to do. And, the fact that the writers and designers of this game managed to get that little facet in there. They don't dwell on it, they don't, say, look at me, I'm seeing things through logically. They just do it, and, it's a layer that, if you think about it, does stand up to, at least, some thinking about it. If you disagree, I would love to hear, your thoughts about it in the comments, below. Alright, here is the first appearance of everyone's favorite, Lavitz, who is gonna live forever. You can tell this guy is immortal. I mean, look at him. He's got green armor. Actually, I do like just the design of how they, designed Lavitz with his armor, with a nice white trim, on top of, his green armor below, so I guess he probably in Magic the Gathering has a green and white deck, so he can have both forest and whatever the white is, which gets his powers from play. Yeah, I need to learn how to play Magic the Gathering again. I haven't played that game in so long, I've forgotten everything about it. I know trees are forests, blue cards get their power from the ocean, red gets their power from mountains, black gets their power from swamps, and I think white gets from plains. Well, anyway, so, that's what I like is, a clear character design. They clearly thought about it. They gave him, personality, and he isn't just the stereotypical, white knight either. Early on he fails and his comrades die because of his failure, which, that right there is a really kind of dark thing. But the fact that they don't dwell on it, the fact that he understands that he's doing the best he can, and that not everyone's gonna make it. I mean, he gets his revenge on the people who do the actual killing, and then, just moves on because life has to move on. I could see, the other opinion of, he moves on too quickly, of, there's this traumatic thing happening. Why is he not, reacting more strongly to it? I definitely see that point of view. But, in my opinion, they're in the middle of a war. These are not the first soldiers he's lost under his command, under, what he's had to do. And he knows in his heart that they're not going to be the last. And that, life goes on. I do have to admit that the lift design is pretty wacky in this prison. A wicker basket with a cloth roof that moves up and down. That's pretty weird, especially because you never see what's controlling it. But, oh well, I guess. But on the other hand, it does, contrast with the things we're going to be seeing later, which are powered by magic. This, you can tell, is definitely powered by humans, either, through a, pack animal acting as a counterweight, or some other kind of, purely mechanical device, which, given the time period, is very possible. Because in the Middle Ages, windmills and gears were, coming about, so it wouldn't be that much of a stretch that with a gearing system, pulleys, and a counterweight that, this, could be, feasible in this level of technology. So, again, I'm just, as I'm replaying this game, having my critical eye out, it's actually holding up a lot better than, honestly, I was expecting it to. I was expecting it to have, a lot more problems, considering when it came out, and, how much of a sourpuss I am, or, probably there's better words to describe it as, hypercritical pain in the butt that I am. One of the things that I'm doing so far is that I'm editing out all the random battles, just because, they're pretty boring, but I just want to let you know that at the very least I will do a video showing off all the additions. I'm, definitely going to do that at some point. And I'm going to show the boss battles, which there is going to be one in this video. And so, we'll look at that one, and whatnot. One of the things that, playing this again as a second playthrough is that, I can understand where, a lot of people would find Shannon so annoying and, so weak. But then again, on the other hand, I know what she really is. And I know that, it may not be all Dart's, normal intentions, that he is so forgiving and, so ready to, carry her and, do whatever she... A good layer of the game, can be seen as, it's the early manifestations of her power of being able to draw people towards her and get them to do what they want. The other thing that comes to mind is, an old article about women in acting is that there's only 3 roles for a woman to play. And so I guess Shannon is the virgin. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that would be the 3 Faces of Eve, which a woman can either play either a virgin, a whore, or a mother, are allegedly the only 3 roles that a woman can play. And I disagree with that. That's an awfully simplistic view. But I guess if you had to use that, you would put Shannon in the virgin category. One of the things that I find as strange in media is how evil empires are portrayed. This is one of the first glimpses that what this government is in the south of Sourdough. I'm just going to call it the Sourdough region because I'm not really sure what the correct pronunciation is, and this was before the era of voice acting, so no one's going to read it. Here in the Kingdom of Sourdough, that the South has, become corrupted and dark, and we'll see this, a few times in a few ways, as best friends have, been split by the splitting of the kingdom, and, like all civil wars, it's not a happy affair on either side. But one of the things that I don't get is when you're trying to portray an empire as evil, when you start going cartoonishly evil, of everybody's backstabbing everybody at every opportunity, and they're murdering their underlings for the most minor of annoyances, that kind of government wouldn't work. Because, well, first of all, the practical reason, if he kills subordinates so easily, how does he have any subordinates left? But also, that much evil would break under itself. Even though, this evil warden is, more powerful than an average person, than any of the average guards, which we'll see in the boss fight, at the same time, it still, he can't take all of them. And so why they are, continuing to, put up with that when they can die so easily. And so, that's one of the things that, that is a bad storytelling trope. If you look at Star Trek's, mirror universe, there's a reason that the Terran Empire, falls apart so easily, because you can't hold it together with everybody betraying everybody at every turn, because then you just have, anarchy, which, by the definition of anarchy, is you can't build anything upwards with that. And, one of the few things, Star Trek Enterprise got right was when they visited the Mirror Universe. You saw how quickly, you saw how that concept doesn't work, where everybody, has killed everybody else, so that the only person left out of the cast was Hoshi by the end of it. And, Hoshi is not going to rule the universe too long by herself. And so you can, and so, alright, so now we're into our first boss fight, which this is what I consider the first boss fight, because he is clearly more powerful. He's a story-based character that doesn't just come out of nowhere. He has underlings that are apparently willing to die for him. But at the same time, he has a, unique character model. This warden is not just, anybody. He has personality. He has attacks, unique to him, which he has kind of a choke, throw, slam, which is definitely different than anything we've seen in the game so far. He has a earth... Actually, I don't know if it's earth-based attack or not. I'll have to look that up on a game FQA, but he uses the prison to his own advantage in a very evil empire sort of way of collapsing the roof down upon them, which, shows just how bad of a boss he is, because he's weakening his own prison to use as an attack in a fight, which makes as little sense to me as it probably does to you. I mean, his whole point is to be a warden, and yet he's damaging the prison. Which, the only reason that I find that so bothersome is because in this game they did think things through and did have so much, humanity, that honestly I can't tell if they were doing that by luck and then this is really what they were doing with, or if he's supposed to be a caricature of an evil warlord, or what necessarily is the intention that they were going for with this. So, he definitely does his job of being a very early threshold guardian, which is something from Joseph Campbell. Basically, why anybody can't, start an adventure, they have to, meet various, demons and rise above them. And, this guy, Fjord, or whatever his name is, definitely does that, does his job, does his, which is, his narrative reason to exist. But at the same time, it just... He just almost doesn't even fit in this game, because most of the other villains have a sense of humanity to them, so I don't know if he was just, a remnant of when they're originally making, the first draft of the game, and then moved towards the human villains, if he was a late addition added in because they thought they needed a boss fight here, and another spot, so I don't really, quite get, so I don't get this guy. And as you can see by, I know this is a boss, and so they're supposed to take longer, but this is why I've been editing out all the battles, is because, they do take a while. And, there's not really, much, story to it. Also that, and I've been having, some trouble getting the additions down, because I think there's a delay in my video recorder. So what I'm seeing on the screen is, about a half second to second behind what the game is playing. So... especially in the early part here, I was having a lot of trouble, connecting with any additions. Which is the combo system, which, let me go ahead and talk about that now. You can see those boxes flying across the screen. Basically, one is fixed, and the other one is spinning and shrinking. And so when those two boxes cross, you're supposed to hit the X button. And so at this point, they only have, their beginning ones, which is, one hit, and, you've got a combo. Whereas, they'll get more complicated later on with, some crazy things, which, I'll definitely do a video about, In fact, I might just do one video where it's this marathon, every edition all at once, which actually sounds like a fun video. So it's definitely a different, way of going about combat. It's not the stereotypical Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, push X and then, wait 5 minutes and then push X again. It is more engaging. It does, do things differently. And this is the only game, even tries to do something, like this. The only other game I could think of, which I'm probably going to do a video on, is the Shadow Hearts franchise, where they have a spinning wheel and you have to hit it at the right times. That is also a great game too. Alright, one of the things that I find odd about this fight is if the warden is just so evil and so bad that everyone is following him through fear, which is kind of understandable. What I don't get is why the 2 guards that remain after you kill him, well, actually, I need to say defeat him, continue to fight, which just probably, that's not going anywhere. One of the design things that I like about this game is that they gave Lavitz a distinct feel and a distinct style of how he uses his spear and how his additions, work, which, you may get another character who uses that spear in green armor, but is not Lavitz. King Albert has, definitely a distinctive style, and I like that they integrated the gameplay so much with, that storyline issue, which to me is a great touch. And, I'm going to be going into more depth with that, because the initial one, Harpoon, is, not the greatest difference of, their 2 styles. I'm definitely going to, take a look and compare and contrast those as we go along. But, I personally, very much like Lavitz as, a character. And he definitely, has a feel. He's not just a temporary person that they put in the game, which, I wonder at what point they decided to do what they were, with him. Okay, maybe I spoke a little too soon. There are some horses in this game after all. Although, well, I guess horse-like creature. I don't know what these things are that they're about to ride, but they're not horses. These aren't horses. Although I do like that, one of the things that we're going to see with Lavitz as we go through the game is that he is kind of a step behind Dart in most things. And he isn't, a stereotypical, always perfect knight. He has imperfections, he has flaws, he slips, he falls, he gets hurt. he, almost doesn't make the jailbreak because he can't ride quite as fast as Dart, even though he's got an extra person on his horse. Just these little things that, make him not a caricature, but an actual person underneath that armor. And so it adds so much to the game, at least in my opinion, and why, this is one of the things that I think of when I think of, good JRPGs. So, thank you everybody, and join me for episode 3.